perfect, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you to you and your team again, to Boffers. Right, so look, I've now got the great pleasure of introducing you all to Lucy. She's been travelling the country, I know, and is here now in Auckland this evening to give her keynote. I'd like to just do a few little bits about your background, Lucy, if that's all right, before we call you up here. But Lucy is a consultant in public health, specialising in transport, public realm and planning. She developed a healthy streets approach, which you've just heard from Lisa about, and that's the 10 Healthy Streets Indicators in 2011. In 2015, she was awarded the Transport Planner of the Year by the Transport Planning Society, and her work won awards from the International UITP and UK Chartered Institute of Highways and Transportation. Lucy currently leads on the integration of transport and public health in London, supporting TfL, Transport for London, the boroughs and various advocacy organisations. Lucy works across both the GLA, the Greater London Authority, and also Transport for London, embedding the Healthy Streets approach in policy and practice. In 2014, TfL became the first transport authority in the world to publish a health action plan, which Lucy wrote and led its 3-year implementation. Lucy, I had a few phone calls from old friends at London Borough of Tower Hamlets who said they apply your Healthy Streets Indicator programme to every single transport project in London Borough of Tower Hamlets. So it's happening. Lucy's worked as a public health specialist across a wide range of organisations from local to international level, including the NHS, government, academic, private and voluntary sectors. She advises the World Health Organization, the WHO, and the UK government departments for transport and health, and the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence, called NICE. She gained fellowship of the UK Faculty of Public Health in 2012 on completion of the UK Specialist Medical Training Programme in Public Health. She has a master's degree in geography and public health. Lucy, we need you in Auckland. It would be great to have you here, but you're here tonight to address us all, and I'm really privileged to meet you and hear about your work. So everybody, give her please a rapturous Auckland welcome.
Good evening. Right, healthy streets. It starts off gloomy, but it picks up, so bear with me. We'll start off with the 5 big health impacts of transport in urban environments. And I need a little bit of participation from you for this bit in a very low-tech way. So I hope you'll take my word for it that these are the 5 big health impacts of our urban realm of transport, and they all relate to how we manage motorised road transport. So severance, that's the effect of people not being able to get from where they are to where they want to be. It can be caused by very busy roads with fast-moving traffic or a lot of parked vehicles. It can also be caused by rivers and railway lines. It impacts on our health by isolating people and causing them to not be able to access the services and the people they need to interact with. And there's noise, air quality, road traffic injuries, and physical activity. So I'd like you, through a show of hands in a moment, to vote for the one that you think of these 5 is the biggest one in Auckland. So out of these 5 health impacts of the transport system, in Auckland, which one do you think has the biggest impact on health in the round? So we'll start at the end and we'll work this way. So first of all, can I have a show of hands of those who think that severance is the biggest health impact in Auckland? Okay. Noise, air quality, road traffic injuries, physical activity. Ooh, let's see if you're right. So this is probably the most miserable graph you'll get to see. It's all grey, and it is, cheerfully, the top causes of illness and early death amongst New Zealanders. I told you it will pick up. At the top is overweight and obesity. And for those of you who voted physical activity, it's there at number 10. And out of the main health impacts of the transport system and urban realm, physical activity is the biggest one. So you can give yourselves a pat on the back, those of you who voted for low physical activity. So to be number 10 out of all the causes of illness and early death that we can do something about in Auckland, that's quite a significant influence of our transport system. But it's actually even bigger than this, because all these bars that are highlighted in green, they all relate to physical activity. So if you are physically active, you reduce your risk of overweight and obesity, of high blood pressure, of type 2 diabetes, occupational risks, high cholesterol, and kidney disease. So it's much bigger than you might even have thought. Then air pollution, for those of you who put your hand up for air quality, it is there at number 13. There are obviously other causes of air pollution aside from road transport, but it has a big impact, and it causes 1,000 premature deaths a year in New Zealand. Vehicles, even electric vehicles, contribute to air pollution through tyre and brake wear, causing particulates to enter the atmosphere. And then road traffic injuries, they don't get their own special bar from the way that the data is sliced up, but they do feature in this top causes in number 5. So these are the road traffic injuries that result from someone who's intoxicated, killing or injuring themselves or somebody else. And further down the graph, there'll be other road traffic injuries that are not related to people being intoxicated. So when we look at these all together, I hope you can understand why I chose, as a public health professional, to go and work in the transport sector. Because if I can do anything that's going to improve people's health, probably the best use of my efforts is to change the way that we use our public realm and our streets. Because look, out of all these top causes of illness and early death, a lot of them relate to how we use our street environments. So, how popular do you think I was when I went up to my transport planning colleagues who already had a difficult job? It's not easy planning transport and managing complex environments like streets. So how popular do you think I was when I said, in addition to your already difficult job, I've got 5 other things I'd like you to be worrying about together at the same time? I didn't ask them to worry about 5 other things. I asked them to think of 10 other things in every decision that they made. And these are the 10 healthy streets indicators. So I'm going to just go through each of these now. The first one is easy to cross. And this refers back to that severance issue that I mentioned earlier on. And this is a little example from Valencia in Spain, but there's actually a much more local one just on the street down here. It's a street that is designed so that it's very clear to the people passing through in a vehicle that the people who are prioritised in this location are those who are crossing the street on foot. The next indicator is shade and shelter. And I think you probably have a much better awareness of the importance of this for health than many other audiences around the world. But shade from sun to protect people from skin cancer, and shelter from rain, and I understand it sometimes rains here, is that right? Means that not only that people are protected from the harms that pollution can cause them, but also that streets are welcoming environments for people to be out, spending time, walking, cycling, socialising, whatever the weather. And this is an example from Chicago, and it shows maybe one of the most important things about healthy streets, which is it's not something that falls within the domain of one professional group. So this street here, the architects have put design features on buildings that provide shelter, and the businesses have put awnings out that provide further shelter. And then the local authority's probably been involved in planting those street trees, and businesses have put some other greening out as well. So it's definitely a collective effort to make that a street in which people feel they can go out whatever the weather and enjoy being there. The next one is places to stop and rest. And we all need these, particularly at certain points in our lives, when we're very young, when we're much older, when we're injured, when we're carrying heavy bags. We all need them, but also, in addition to that need, they help to make streets social places, and we need social interaction for our own mental health and well-being. So providing places for people to stop and rest change the way that streets feel, so that people stop and interact and take a break from the hustle and bustle of life. And this example here is from Montreal in Canada. And in this particular example, some on-street parking was removed to widen the footway and provide some on-street parking. And it was really welcomed by the local businesses because it meant that people spent more time there and then spent more money in their shops. Not too noisy. So the health impacts of noise are really under-recognised but incredibly important. We know that noise during childhood affects child development and children's ability to perform well at school. Throughout life, it affects our ability to sleep well, and as adults, it can affect blood pressure and our ability to do well at work. And this is an example from New York, where some of the carriageway space was taken away from the through flow of traffic to provide a space for people to walk and cycle and spend time. And just the removal of traffic from that part of the street made it was much quieter and meant that these people here in this picture can have a conversation without having to shout. The next indicator is people choose to walk and cycle. Now there's an obvious link here with physical activity, which we can see is really important for our health, but the key word is choose, because in every community there are some people who are walking and cycling at the moment not out of choice, and that's not an outcome that is desirable. What we want to provide is an environment in which everybody feels that it's an attractive choice for them for those short journeys. And this is an example from Vancouver, where a lane of traffic was converted into a two-way cycle track with a nice green buffer, so it feels like a really pleasant place to ride along the street. People feel safe. This refers not only to safety from road traffic injuries, but also personal safety from street crime and antisocial behaviour. And this is a street in Vienna in Austria, and I think this picture is quite interesting because the people who are walking around in this shopping street seem completely unfazed by the bus that's travelling down that street. There's a huge amount of trust going on in this picture, which is a result of a really well-designed street, but also some probably really well-trained bus drivers as well. Things to see and do. These are so important. We know that if people have the things that they need to use regularly within a short distance of where they are, then they've got the option of being able to walk or cycle and therefore build some physical activity into their daily routine. But we also know that if streets are visually engaging at eye level, people are much more willing to walk and cycle and spend time on those streets. So it's a real win-win. And this example is from Paris in France, and this is a pretty drab and uninteresting street. But I spotted these slightly unusual collections of pot plants on the street, and it piqued my curiosity, and we should never underestimate the power of curiosity to get people to do things they wouldn't normally do. So these little plants resulted in me walking down a street I had absolutely no reason to walk down because I was curious to see what was going on. People feel relaxed. If we want people to walk and cycle, it needs to feel so pleasant and enjoyable to do that it's preferable for short journeys to driving a car. And that means making sure that our footways are wide and smooth so that people can walk and talk, and that our cycle tracks feel safe and wide and smooth so people can cycle and talk. And we really need to think about our streets as social spaces when we're travelling. When we're in a car, we can socialise with the other people who are in the car, and we should have that same privilege when we're walking and cycling as well. And this is a street from London, which has been designed definitely with the view of making the people on it feel really relaxed, and these two women are walking along having a conversation and not having to think about obstacles or hazards in their way. Clean air, the health impacts of this are quite well known. They impact our pulmonary and our cardiovascular system, and this example here is from Seoul in South Korea, and this lush green riverside walkway was a multi-lane highway, and the air quality in this area was very, very poor. They replaced the multi-lane highway with this extended route through the middle of the city that means people can walk very, very long distances away from traffic with much better quality air in their local area. And everyone feels welcome. This is maybe the ultimate goal of healthy streets, that our streets are inclusive places for everyone in the community to feel like it's their street, The space between our buildings belongs to all of us, and we should feel that collective comfort and welcoming feeling when we're in the street. And this last example is from Freiburg in Germany. And in New Zealand, teenagers are amongst the least active of our population. Only about 10% of secondary school students are achieving the minimum level of physical activity they need for their health. So I picked this picture because it shows two young women who are cycling, one roller skating, back from school. And I think when we see our streets filled with young people, it's a sign that we're really heading in the right direction. So the 10 Healthy Streets indicators, they're not 10 separate things. They're all connected to how we feel on the street, so they're all interconnected with each other. If we make our streets easier to cross, then people feel safer. And if people feel safer, then they're more likely to choose to walk or cycle. And if they're choosing to do that rather than go in the car, then the air quality is improved, which makes the street a much more relaxing place, and a much more relaxing street is one that is easier to cross. So you can see it's all self-reinforcing. Another way of looking at it is to take a street. And here I've just got a local parade of shops that could be in any residential area. And the first thing that you might do would be to widen the footways, because this has two roles. First of all, it makes it much more relaxing and sociable for people who are walking, but by narrowing down the carriageway, it also means that the people who are driving through that street will go a little bit more slowly, which will be appropriate in a place where there are shops and footways. And there's a crossing, and the crossing is actually at the point where people want to cross the street. It's radical stuff, this. So this is at the entrance of a public transport station. And there's a lower speed limit so that people understand this is a people place, so we go a bit more slowly. We can provide shade and shelter through planting and through colonnades and awnings. Places to stop and rest in the form of maybe the traditional on-street bench, but it might be a parklet or it might be a pocket park. Making the street feel much safer by making sure the street lighting is designed to light the footway and the cycle track, not just the carriageway for the cars, and designing our buildings so that they look out over the street and provide some natural surveillance. And making it a more attractive environment to walk and cycle by providing public transport services that people can walk to, and maybe this street might need a cycle track as well. Cycle parking, bike hire, there are other things that can help. Things to see and do, making sure that street is really visually engaging at eye level, and it might be about some temporary changes to pique people's curiosity, and it might be about the design of the buildings, and it might be about the things that people put in their shop windows. There's many different ways to deliver the things to see and do indicator. And then finally, for those vehicles that do need to remain on a street that's got people on it, trying to make sure that they are electric wherever possible to minimise the harms of air pollution. So Healthy Streets is about giving streets back to people, and a street that works for people is a street that's good for health. So these are my 10 Healthy Streets indicators. How popular do you think I was when I said, I think we should be doing this much more complicated way of doing what we've always been doing? I think we should start from scratch and focus everything we do around what it feels like for people on streets. Well, there's a lot of people who have an influence over our streets and public realm who don't really care a lot about health, and that is absolutely fine, because Healthy Streets isn't just about human health. It delivers on so many other fronts that the reason why Healthy Streets is something that a lot of people can get on board with is because it tackles a whole range of other issues that many of us are dealing with. So some of the key ones that cities around the world are looking at the moment is how do we improve quality of life of the people who live in this city? How do we tackle congestion? How do we deal with the rising cost of living and our failing high streets? And what about the rising public service costs? And the reason why the Healthy Streets approach is appealing to them is because it helps them to deal with the challenge that they're facing at the same time. So I thought I'd leave you just with one example. This is an important example because this is a street that is in London. It's in East London. Most people who live in London have never heard of this street. Most people who live in London will never visit this street. In fact, most of the people who live in that borough don't know about that street and have not visited that street. This is not about a big city centre, high-cost project, high-profile project. This is just an ordinary local parade of shops in a residential area. And this is what it looked like until recently. And this is what it looks like now. Actually, it looks a little bit greener than that because it's summer in London. But even in winter, it still had children out playing on it. And this is what the street looks like before and after, so you get a sense of what it's about. It's about taking some of those vehicles out of the street space and letting people go in and seeing what they do with it. Healthy Streets is about giving streets back to people. Thank you very much.